Hi everyone, you are listening to the TÉKA Podcast. I am Georgina Kiskozma, social scientist and bookworm. In the TÉKA Podcast episodes, we talk about social issues, each time on new topics. One thing is for sure, we preserve ideas instead of borrowing them. Join us. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the TÉKA Podcast. I'm Georgina Kiskozma and today we have a very special guest with us. Fleur Elizabeth Meston is a writer and political commentator and campaigner. She is the co-host of the Bombshells podcast and is known for leading impactful campaigns, including the successful revocation of Arts Council England funding for the Family Sex Show. In 2021, she also ran as a Conservative Party candidate in local elections. Fleur, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Sitting across from me today is a young woman known for her highly impactful campaigns, something that might seem surprising given the widespread belief that young people are not interested in politics. From our experiences, is that really true? Are young people really not interested in politics, or are they just approaching it differently than previous generations?
I think they are definitely interested in politics, though it's kind of hard for me to say because I am so interested that all of my friends are interested in politics. But I think if you look at the sort of huge movements that have been happening recently in the UK and across the world, things like protesting for Palestine or the climate change and women's marches, things like that, there is vast majority young people. And yeah, they are engaging with it differently. We've been discussing at the Youth Research Institute conference about the use of social media, which is a great rallying tool for young people engagement in politics. But I'd say it's probably this century rather than in a very recent thing. But yeah, definitely different to previous generations' political engagement. I think if I had grown up without social media, I wouldn't have got involved at all.
So social media do have any kind of positive impact in this way?
Yeah, hugely.
What first got you interested in public debate, and when did you realize your voice could make an impact?
Oh, interesting one. So I was an extremely shy child and definitely not a debater. I really didn't like to speak up in group conversations. And then I was lucky enough to go to a small private school with small classes. There are about 15 students in a class, and an ethos of very much stand up for what you believe in. Everyone encouraged to say their opinion and debate, and that really grew my confidence. And suddenly I felt like, oh, I have my own opinions and I should share them and learn from other people. And yeah, so I got some confidence then. And it was in 2016 when there were, it started 2015, public debates about the UK leaving the European Union, and I went to see a Vote Leave, that was one of the big campaigns to leave the EU, rally at a local theatre, and Nigel Farage spoke, and the way that he spoke felt very rousing, very invigorating, got me excited about it, and I thought, wow, this is something that I can get excited about, and suddenly became very politically engaged because the promises that he was making if we left the European Union would directly affect sort of my future life, and it was something that I wanted to get behind. But the period after that, when it felt like we weren't going to get a good deal leaving, I suddenly became very disengaged with politics. I thought, we had this inadequate Prime Minister called Theresa May, who just wasn't doing any good deals with Europe, and it just felt very like, what's the point in caring when you just constantly get disappointed? But then, yeah, as an adult, I just couldn't resist getting back involved, and I love campaigning, whether that's when I stood for local elections, or last year there was the leadership contest for the leader of the Conservative Party, and I joined the Robert Jenrick campaign, and just, doing everything you can to win is so much fun. And at the moment I'm very involved with the campaign to stop the assisted suicide legislation in the UK, which is really tough because I passionately care about it, and the thought of all of the vulnerable people at stake really spurs you on, but it can be pretty emotionally draining at the same time. But yeah, hopefully we win.
Your campaign against the family sex show became a national story. What was the campaign about? What goal were you trying to achieve? And do you feel it ultimately succeeded? Looking back, what made it resonate so strongly with the public and media?
So I, by chance, came across a theatre show called The Family Sex Show, which its aim was to teach children as young as 5 about sex, and it involved some very inappropriate, just stuff that children are too young to know about, and it also involved all of the cast of the show getting completely naked on stage, simulating sexual acts. And I had previously trained as a nursery teacher and knew about early years education and what's appropriate for children at what age. And when I came across this, I thought I was absolutely appalled, because all of the children that I'd looked after and cared about, the thoughts of them being exposed to that just made me feel sick. So I just stumbled across it by chance, tweeted about it, and I used Twitter when I only had about 1,000 followers, just sending it directly to specific larger accounts saying, you might care about this, please boost it if you do. Funny enough, one of the accounts I sent it to was Libs of TikTok, who I met today, and I need to thank her for posting about it, because that did blow it up quite a lot, and it got media attention and political attention, and a lot of public attention off the back of that. I think that the reason it resonated so strongly with the public is no matter how much of a libertarian you are and think, well, let people go and see what they want to see, children can't consent to learning about things like that and being exposed to that because they don't understand what it is. And I do think we have a duty to protect children's innocence, because it's such a special time in their life that they can never get back. And once that innocence is spoilt, they can't regain it. So I think it was, a lot of people recognised that, a lot of parents did. But it ended up being debated in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords in Parliament. And it had its Arts Council England funding revoked, but that was just one show, and unfortunately our taxes is what funds these things are spent on much crazier stuff. There is a writer called Charlotte Gill who has a Substack dedicated to exposing this, and it is unbelievable. I mean, don't read it if you don't want to get annoyed, but just some of the things, university courses that we fund on it, and just a bunch of crazy stuff. So no, we've not won. Until we abolish something like Arts Council England, then we won't win, unfortunately.
Technology has completely reshaped how young people socialize, consume culture, and even form political opinions. 20 years ago, most young people watched the same shows and shared the same cultural moments. Today, each of them lives inside a highly personalized algorithmic bubble that shapes their thinking and even their values. In this new environment, how can young people actually be reached? Is it just about using new communication channels, or is it more than young people connect with issues rather than institutions or politicians? How do you see?
Yeah, well, I think using social media is the most effective way of reaching young people. I don't know how much it changes people's minds. I don't think it's particularly useful in bringing people from one side to the other, but it definitely can solidify people's views. I think the most valuable thing that I have found it for is a community. When I was at university and lost my friends basically for my political views, I had friends online who shared the same views as me, and you helped me realize that I'm not crazy. There are other people that think like me. And if there's a very niche issue that you care about, for me, I'm pro-life and I campaign against assisted suicide, and they're not particularly popular viewpoints to hold. But having people online that share those, you can all work together to campaign for these things. And we had a lovely Christmas drinks do for all of the people that had been campaigning against assisted suicide on Twitter specifically. And it's just great. Like, it really motivates you and you feel like you're not alone. So it's very useful. But offline is also incredibly important, spending time with people in person like that. I have recently been involved in founding a social group for conservative young women, not like the Conservative Party, but socially conservative young women, to meet regularly. We've got it in London, in Oxford, and in Cambridge, because I feel very lucky that all of my friends sort of think like me, and where I work, my views are normal. But I have friends that work in the civil service or at the BBC who have to hide their views in work, and I think that can be really damaging for them. And so they need a safe space to feel normal. Like, that is so important. I think we underestimate that, and it's been really valuable for them to just be sort of propped up in their views.
You are very successful in campaigning. What, in your view, makes a message credible to young people, and how can one encourage them to actively support a significant cause?
I think if they can't relate to it, you're not going to succeed. That's why, for me and for people on the right in Britain, telling us that the ice caps are melting and that the rainforests have all disappeared, it just doesn't cut through, because where's the evidence? We're not seeing that. Whereas telling us that, I don't know, things like the migrants in the hotels, when you're seeing stories coming out every day that there have been rapes, that there have been murders, and you can see them outside the hotels hanging around, and you can see your taxes being taken off your paycheck that are paying for them to live there. Those kinds of things cut through a lot more. In the online world, especially with young men, I think statistics and information are paramount. If they can see a figure, for example, 70% of Somalis in the UK live in social housing. That is an outstanding figure, and people will see that and think, that's bad, we need to do something about that. Which politician is standing against that? And then they will back them. If you've got an issue, just like a clear message and someone that backs it, that combination should be able to translate into votes and policies that will be able to change things. But then if people do vote for those people and get let down, that's it. Especially in Britain, they are not very forgiving. That's why the Conservative Party lost at the last election and are doing very badly in the polls and probably not likely to come back.
I can see a problem here. Most young people are not actively searching or looking for political content. They follow creators, influencers, personal stories or humor, and they respond to voices that feel direct and accessible. But isn't this potentially dangerous? Nowadays, celebrities have a growing influence in politics. People often trust them because they seem distant from the political establishment, which gives them a lot of power without really being held accountable. For the record, this isn't about restricting free speech. it's about the quality of democracy. Where should we draw the boundary? When does political influence become problematic if it comes from people who are not accountable to the public? This is particularly concerning when celebrities seem to undermine society's foundations, like the family or the nation, or try to shape children's views on gender without involving their parents.
Yeah, I think it's really problematic. There's something going on in the UK that the Labour government, so the left-wing government, are paying social media influencers to promote the government, to convince people that they're doing well and that their policies are good, but they don't have to explicitly say that they're being paid by the government. And so it's this strange cycle of I work, I pay taxes to the government who pays an influencer to convince me that the government's doing well. Like, that's just really bad. Thankfully, I can see through it. And I guess it doesn't work because the algorithm is not feeding me pro-government content because it knows that I do not like them. But that is not where our money should be going right now. You know, when people are struggling to afford heating and food, and we're paying already rich influencers to sell us propaganda, I think that's really dangerous. And yeah, but the majority of people don't know about it, so they can't challenge the government on this.
You have built a remarkable profile as a political commentator, campaigner, combining activism, research, and a keen understanding of media. You have led campaigns that sparked national debates, influenced policy, and challenged mainstream assumptions about politics and society. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what makes political messaging truly effective today, how to create impact that lasts beyond the headlines, and your advice for the next generation of young people eager to make their voices heard.
I think truth is the most important thing, and as part of the advice to the next generation, just don't get caught up in what's getting attention. Don't feel like you have to comment on everything when you haven't yet developed a view, because as you grow up, I mean, I think I was about 20 when I started talking about politics online. Your views will change, and that's a good thing, and you should be open to having your mind changed by other people, because that's what you're trying to do to other people. But yeah, it's very easy, and I've seen this happen to people, to get pulled in extreme directions, but just think about what matters to you truly and why it matters to you. Like, for me, a lot of my views and opinions come from being a Christian, from being English and caring about my country, from being a Meston, what are my family values and how do they influence how I think, and just caring about other people and wanting the best for the people around me. And if everyone thinks, why do I believe this? Why am I pushing for this? Is it coming from a place of hatred, or is it coming from, I see other people are getting loads of engagement for talking about this, just trying to do the right thing, having some integrity, which I completely understand is hard to do when likes and engagement and fame and invitations to speak on TV are very attractive. If you don't hold true to your values, then you can have a very quick downfall.
And how does a successful modern campaign differ from traditional political messaging? Is there a secret ingredient that makes it resonate with people today, or young people today?
I think I've only really known campaigning in the digital age, but what seems to work best is there's this phenomenon called the posting to policy pipeline. I don't know do you have that in Hungary as well, or is that a UK thing? Yeah. So a lot of people get a single issue and they talk about it non-stop and get other people on board. A few examples of this there were these dangerous dogs called XL bullies, and people just constantly flooded Twitter with statistics of how many dog attacks there'd been from this one breed, until the government was forced to listen and they banned them. And that was just from Twitter, basically. Another one was the grooming gangs. So Pakistani Muslims in gangs raping young girls. It'd been going on for decades and decades, but people posted about it enough on Twitter recently, about a year ago, that Elon Musk finally noticed it and he reposted it, and all of a sudden Parliament had to listen and they finally voted to have an inquiry into it. It can take one small person, even an anonymous account with an idea, that can lead to the Prime Minister making a policy decision or banning something or legalising something, whatever. And that would not have been able to happen in traditional campaigning techniques, because one person in a rural part of the country would not have had a voice and would never have been able to make a change like that. So, yeah, I think this social media generation is great.
Right. And my last question is, if a young person today wants to get involved in public life, whether as a journalist, activist, or politician, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Have confidence, which is something that I had to learn. But even if you don't feel confident, just fake it. Ask people for things. Don't be shy. Introduce yourself at any event. Just ask for opportunities and keep going. And if you get knocked back, don't stop. Just ask people for advice. Try and find a mentor as well. Someone that would have your best interests at heart, but knows the industry, whether that's writing or politics or commentating. Because I think wisdom that can be passed down is incredibly useful, and it stops you from making, or hopefully stops you from making, the same mistakes that others have. And yeah, but I think confidence is the number one thing.
This brings us to the end of today's episode. I'm grateful to our guests for participating in this discussion and to our listeners for their attention. We hope you'll join us again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the TÉKA Podcast. You can find more content on the Youth Research Institute's website and Facebook page.